Right, here is a look at April the 15th, 2020. There's so many people doing basic nice things at the moment. There's a residents group on WhatsApp for this road that I live in. And on a daily basis people are just saying, I've got this, do you need any of it? I've got one of these, do you need help with it? You know, and it's been a time recently where I've been very kind of consumed with my frustrations with regards to people's complacency and their insistence that things are either more serious or more trivial than we're being led to believe. It always frustrates me when I'm standing in a house fire, when people insist on discussing how the fire started. It's time to get everybody out, save lives and get the fire put out, you know. There's far too many people who wish to pontificate, and I guess at some points I join the noise, I join the rabble, you know, and it's not a healthy thing to do. But as I say, we can't pretend we're perfect, and sometimes we just have to let out whatever crap is bringing us down. And you know, I'm no exception to that rule, but no apologies for it. But you know, I'm not particularly happy with my output in that way. The way that I felt comfortable expressing myself in how I dressed when I was growing up caused me a lot of grief. During the 1980s I was just the classic kind of hardcore punk image, and I got police interest. On one time at Victoria Coach Station waiting for a transfer, I was searched by no less than 5 different sets of 2 police officers. For what reason I don't know, but it was basically because of the way I looked. It's the only thing that differentiated me from everybody around me. And for many years I would discuss it with people and say, this has happened to me. I've had people aggressive in the street, I've had people making foul comments about me, and people would say, well, look at you do ask for it. You know, in those situations the obvious implication is there is a norm that needs respecting, and although you're not forced to follow it, if you do, you've got to expect grief. And when people say you ask for it, it's like many other situations in life. Woman wearing a short skirt in a bar, she ends up being sexually assaulted. Well, she was asking for it with how she's dressed. You know, if only we get to a point in life where somebody's mugged and somebody says, well, what were you wearing? Did you have your mobile phone on you? Well, you know, you did have the signs of opulence, and the suit was a dead giveaway that you probably had expensive possessions in your pocket, so you were asking for it, sunshine. You know, there are all sorts of mechanisms and situations where victims are blamed for the crimes that are perpetrated against them, and you know, that is still a common thing, unfortunately. We haven't advanced that far. I had a conversation with a friend last night who, you know, we have a difference of opinion on this, and it's no more than that. But as with everything else in my life, I use what I experience as fodder for sharing a sort of an opinion. And I have an opinion on what I was told last night, which is we were chatting about the current state of things and people making my life difficult because of their complete unwillingness to adhere to the social distancing laws that are now in place. And this friend of mine just said, you know, I'm going to be tough here and say that you are responsible for your own mind and how you feel. That person is not making you feel that way. And you know, I take issue with that. I take issue with any situation in life where the victim is blamed for having an emotional response to a situation that upset them. We are basically biological computers, and as with any system that computes information, programs have to be loaded onto the memory of that system for them to be there. And as we know, there are situations where we choose, with our own operating system or that of a computer we use, where we choose to take on certain information. We choose to litter our hard drive with information of our choosing, experiences of our choosing. But life by definition has experiences that come our way that we have no power in the choice to have them occupy a part of our memory. And our memories are randomly accessed and are far beyond our own free will as to when we access that information. And I've seen enough situations in my life where through behaviour of my own, that of other people have ended up in dire situations with encoding on their own personal hard drive that has, in two very tragic cases in my life, led to people taking their own lives. Now, were those people responsible for a lot of the information that they put on their own personal computer, their own heart, their own mind? Yeah, of course they were. But some situations that were the big impetus into them considering and indeed going through with suicide were programs that were put upon their own personal hard drive by external forces with little or no control over the imposition of that program being something that they had to contend with. And that needs remembering. The victim is never at fault in a crime of that nature. And although not necessarily a crime in the eyes of the law all the time, what I mean by crime is a malicious and violent act of either words or deeds that makes people or an individual think a certain way. And as I say, I don't think it takes much thinking to realise that that kind of thought process that says we're in control of the way we think, I wholeheartedly disagree, and I refuse on any level to see a victim situation being abused and that victim being seen as the perpetrator, the person who's holding on to a mindset or an act that they didn't choose to have imposed upon them. It takes so little to alter the credibility of that new age philosophy that says, you know, we're in charge of how we feel. What we choose to cling on to is what we choose to cling on to. Couldn't agree with it less. And yeah, I've said enough on that one, really. We're all responsible in some way, shape or form in shaping the zeitgeist, the spirit of our age, the things that we're willing to tolerate and accept as norms. Every society always believes that it's at the pinnacle of morality. Every society thinks that we've come as far as we need to go with regards to altering our ways and the norms that we choose to live with, but I strongly disagree. We've only got to look back to people like Charles Darwin, who was seen as very forward-thinking and liberal and accepting of all, and they were so inherently racist and saw certain ethnic traits from around the world as inferior. But at the time, they were truly, truly liberated thinkers. And I, for one, would hate to think that in 100 years people could dig up this this vlog and think there's somebody who was thinking he was so forward-thinking and so liberated, but in truth, what are we looking at? Somebody who, by today's standards, would be looked at as a complete and utter bigot. You know, I want to look at the way the world's turning. I want to look at the way the world moves, and what's on occasion very comfortable for me. Is it right? You know, is it right for any of us? And I want to at least be a part of a mindset that challenges primarily the behaviour of myself and the thought processes that I'm so comfortable with, and those situations where I just use it as an excuse. Well, everyone else does it.
Yeah, but the question is, just because something is there and it's right, will society deem it as friendly, right, correct and just in the future? You know, we've all got a chance to be a part of altering the world for generations that come after us. We've all got a chance to sow the seeds of the trees that people will sit in the shade of, that we'll never get to enjoy, you know? What do we want to do? Do we want to keep this world in the dark ages, or do we want to move forward and leave selfishness and bigotry behind? I think that we all need to challenge ourselves primarily and put our thoughts and feelings out there as to the ways in which we see norms that we've been a part of. You know, because I did blame myself, going back to the top of this video, I did blame myself for choosing to look a certain way and the grief that I got. But it just shows how deeply entrenched it is that even the victim can end up blaming themselves and somebody's physical visage in the way in which, I mean, I think that I know it's an affectation, I know it's an ego thing, but you know, 30, 40 years later I still dress the same and I still look the same. Tattoos, piercings, it's all the same. It's how I feel comfortable. Not going to make excuses for that. We're human beings. We do have bizarre, ego-based insistences of things that make us comfortable. We know that and take that very seriously, even with regards to sort of people dressing as a gender that suits them. I understand it, I get it, and I have no problem with it. You know, it's a situation that we can choose to either see people who are truly victims as the perpetrators of the crimes against them, that they had no power to guide the hand that actually led them in a way that made them feel so awful, you know? What do we do? Who do we blame? From somebody like me who's just speaking from the charm position of having had grief about the way he looks and the way he chooses to dress, to people who I know have ended up having such violently repulsive thoughts and actions bestowed upon them that it's ultimately relieved them of the mental capacity to maintain their life. Who do we blame? The victim or the perpetrator? We've got a choice. And no one can be seen as to being to blame for having a malicious virus in their system, guiding their thoughts when it wasn't them who put it there in the first place. Really, really got to be hard about this, and we've got to be strict. We've got to look at the victim as just being that, the victim. You are not responsible for those malicious programs that people have injected into you over the years. You are not responsible, not in any way, shape or form. I fight a pretty constant battle with what and who I've been in my life, and I know the seeds that I've sown and the programs that I've distributed in this life that have taken other people to a dark place with little or no concern from me. And you know, I go as far as saying it's a very complex thing, because I've had occurrences in my life where I've thought a malicious program has come my way, and I realise it's just a karmic reflection of my own behaviour. And it can be complicated, because sometimes it can seem that you're a victim, when in point of fact the mirror of fate has just decided to turn its gaze on you. But I do insist that some people are subject to very malicious behaviour, and the mindset that it takes them to is not of their own creation. Them holding on to it is not of their own creation. There are acts bestowed upon people that are just so penetrating and so total in their
violation of that person's heart, mind, spirit, soul and body a lot of the time, that them holding on to it can never be seen as a fault of their own.